Hey there, it's Sober Steve, and welcome to another episode of Podcasting Badass. This week, I am joined by Pixie Jen. She is a Jen from Pixie Health Insurance, and I had an amazing conversation with her about what it would be like turning those conversations you're having with professionals and new clients and leads on a regular basis into a podcast, whether it be a mini series or a show, as well as how to navigate that idea of going from inspiration to launch. Jen was full of joy and excitement, so I know you will enjoy this conversation. Make sure you are following the show wherever you're listening so you can get new episodes when they come every single Monday. Until then, keep on podcasting. Hey there, everyone. It's Sober Steve here today with Jen from Pixie Health Insurance. Welcome to the show, Jen.
Thanks, Steve. Great that you asked me to come on.
Yeah, I was very excited to meet you, and to talk about insurance is something that a lot of times podcasters, as I'm going out in the industry, I see that podcasters do it. But when I talk with a lot of people locally, they're always worried about laws, rules, regulations, things that they can and can't say that might get them in trouble. So I'd love to talk more about what you might think of a podcast and how it can apply to your business.
Actually, just recently I was looking at some statistics about especially people over 65, and they're looking at podcasts more than they ever have before. On average, they're watching them a few more minutes than going on even to Facebook. I think it's a great way to get business out there.
Yeah, I definitely agree. For that age demographic in particular, I really attribute that to Only Murders in the Building. The show with Selena Gomez and Steve Martin has very much targeted to that demographic and is about a podcast. And so as soon as that show came out a couple of seasons ago, all of a sudden, this whole new demographic of people that were traditionally saying they were too old to listen to podcasts, all of a sudden thought podcasts were the coolest things. So love that. And tell me a little bit about what you do with Pixie Health Insurance.
I am the owner of Pixie Health Insurance. Mm-hmm. She is a COVID baby. Mm-hmm. She was developed and listed January 2021. And everybody said I had lost my mind, but I took the interest of a fellow person that I caretake for, an older gentleman. He's actually a World War II veteran, for him for serving. And I didn't like the way that he was treated by an agent, and I saw what happened when he went without Medicare insurance. So I went ahead and said, no, I'm going to devote myself to helping people who either don't know how to get the help, don't know how to ask, or are just aware of what's going on, especially in today's 2025 changes. I am absolutely 100% confident in learning how to actually get this message out and what the changes mean and helping people just like him. It's what got me started to begin with, just the passion of loving and helping people get to a better place and protecting all of those people, including those that wear.
Yeah, no, I love it. And I don't know how much I've shared with you about my past, but not only was I in the senior living industry for so long, I know every single year, all the Medicare reps were always saying it's getting more complicated. Not a single year has gone by where they said it's easier this year. It's always getting more difficult and more confusing. And there's always more options and more scams and more curveballs and things that people need to consider. But also, I was a care manager for a good year and a half, where that's what I had to do, is help people navigate it, because people can't navigate this process by themselves and they need help. They need an expert. And so I'm glad that's where you come in. What would you say are some of the biggest issues or problems that your new clients are facing when they meet you?
Providers, openness to providers, finding good providers and inside networks, which I work really hard and diligent to do that for anybody who asks, not just clients, and partnering with them, learning what the provider needs and what they're looking for, and learning more about what's called risk management, which is really a better way of getting clients more time with their physicians and specialists to keep everybody better and more healthy. And the other biggest thing that I would have to say is prescription drug plans. A lot of agents will run away from them. I run towards them. So I'm in the middle of learning and taking classes and figuring out how they work, so I can get the message out to everybody who's listening about the changes without opinion. Just here's the information. So this year, 2025, I think all Medicare beneficiaries need an agent to explain what's going on. Just don't do it blind.
Yeah, I can agree. And especially if that's something that a lot of people are shying away from or not like running away from with the prescription drug plans. I know from my assisted living experience that most of my seniors, by the time they're living in these communities, are on anywhere from an average of 8 to 13 medications and different prescriptions. And some are like covered with different pharmacies that the facilities use, and sometimes they're not. And so when you're having that many prescriptions and you don't know what gets covered and what doesn't, it gets confusing. So I'm glad that they have you.
A variety of carriers that have good ratings to select for you, so you know that you have something really good in your back pocket when you take out that card and you go to use it at the pharmacy, or you go to use it at your medical doctor. That's something to offer.
Yeah, perfect. And with all the different ways that you can help customers or your clients that you're working with navigating this process, what would you say is like the number one talk or topic or thing that you end up talking about day after day that people really need to hear and they can't hear enough?
I would say, why did the doctor be in the network at the beginning of the year when you wrote that marketplace health insurance policy?
Yeah.
That is on a regular basis, on a regular basis. And I want people to know that that's not an agent's fault. Providers can change their networks like they change their socks. So, but it seems to be a big issue, and it's something that I definitely want us to get with providers, the carriers to get with the providers to help.
Excellent. And so right now, I met you out at a in-person real life networking event. You're building relationships and trying to get referrals that way. But where would you say are you getting most of your business right now? Online?
Through my website, healthinsurance.com.
Yeah. Awesome. And I do love your insurance. Now, because I'm not an insurance expert, I wanted to confirm, like, what you're doing is something where you can help people is it more just in Florida, or is it a nationwide thing? Where is your geographic area of reach of people you can help?
I am a multi-agent state, so I have Florida as my main resident state, but I'm a non-resident agent in 16 other states.
Okay, awesome. So there is, even if you're focusing, if on a podcast where anyone can listen, if we're focusing on Florida, if a couple other states found you, that would be okay if they're one of those 16 states at least.
Yes, I would have to say. I have a big following up in North Carolina and New York, where I'm from.
Okay, awesome.
We do a really good business up there. Unfortunately, the products are a little slim up in New York, so I have a couple self-employed health insurance policies that work really good with somebody who is like us, who's self-employed and needs that health insurance, but doesn't want that marketplace tax implication. I have a solution.
Perfect. As you're talking about something like, let's say the topic was, because you're trying to really focus on the prescription drug plans right now, is that something where you can see this being, because prescription drug plans and health insurance in general shifts and changes so much, would you see this becoming, if you were to podcast, part of your weekly routine where you're building and growing a show and an audience and a group? Or do you see it as more of a short-term series that you can use as a lead magnet, where you can say, here are the 10 things you need to know that are 10 episodes that you do, and then you're done. And then you can send people to that whenever you need. Those are just the two main ways that a lot of people look at podcasting. So I'm curious as to what kind of sparks your interest when I explain that.
When you explain that, Steve, I think of the latter. I think of the 10 main points, something easy and simple, of a step-by-step process of who do you contact first, because it's been asked of me already. Being that annual enrollment's about to roll in October 15th, coming here soon, I would definitely say 10 main points of how to work through the prescription drug 2025 mess.
Yeah, so something like that is perfect, because it doesn't always need to be 10. 10 is just a number I pulled out of thin air. But having that limited series is a great way to make sure that when you're trying to give a specific set of information with a story from A to Z, you're able to give it, and with the right name of the podcast, of being very specific of what it is, not trying to get fancy and creative, of calling it something cerebral and metaphorical, but like literally calling it, if this is what it is, it's prescription drug plans of 2025, everything you need to know, or something like that. But have it be very basic so that people can find it on their own when they're searching for it. Have a very clean, clear cover art that is basically just has what it is, with maybe a picture of a pill or a pill organizer or something like that, so that it draws them visually in when they see it. And then having it be just like you doing what you do best, which is telling them everything that they need to know in a way that they'll be able to digest and follow. And at the end of each episode, they'll have your contact information so they can call you, go to your website, do whatever you need them to do to work with you so you can walk them through it. So I definitely see that being a great lead magnet for you, where you can then also not only have people finding you and your show and your business through that way, but then also as you're out and about networking, if you meet someone and you don't have the time to tell them everything that they need to know right then and there, you can also then send them to your podcast and they can then listen to it on their drive or then get back to you.
Yes. Unfortunately, you're asking me at a time where they haven't even released all of the information.
That's how I understand that, waiting till the last minute and things like that. So there's always ways to do that. And as long as once you get it, if you have everything else planned other than the content, if you know what your logo and your brand and what everything's going to be, the moment you get the content, it's very easy to hit record, get it out there, and be the first podcast about this. So that could be something exciting when the time comes when they do have all that content out there.
Right.
So with this podcast that you're imagining, what kind of barriers or obstacles might you see, other than the timing of not knowing what the content would be yet today? What other kind of obstacles do you see coming in your way from thinking about it to doing it?
Okay, so obstacles would simply be something like, obviously, as we already said, not having enough information. That's the first. Second, how is the audience going to feel about it? The front-facing news shows it in a great light, but they don't know the backdrop of it. And there's a huge backdrop behind it.
Yeah.
That's what I want to scream when I'm allowed. So the obstacle is, if I do this, what kind of voice am I going to have and how am I going to come across? I will, because I don't believe in that in trust. I think if you trust me and you know who I am, those are the two things that I need. You don't have to like me.
Yeah, no, and I understand that, and I definitely get that. And that concern is something like a lot of my new clients and the people that I talk with have. Like a lot of times it becomes easier as we get a clear idea of specifically, like as detailed as possible, who it is. Because oftentimes I find that when we're able to really drill that down as to who that is, you're less worried about what the other people who aren't that person might think or feel, because you really know not only, obviously it sounds like you're looking for seniors that are, or people that are of the age where they're looking or enrolling in prescription drug plans. But if you were to like think even like a little bit deeper, like of closing your eyes and like, which are the people that like, what, because I'm sure that there are other people who do what you do. So who are the people that when you meet them, they light up and say, Jen, Pixie, I love Pixies, I love Jen. That's my person. What do those types of people have that maybe not every single senior who's looking for a drug plan might have? Tell me more about that.
More about my client.
Yeah.
LGBT as well. They would be very, they love the Pixie. And for some reason they love me. They love the technology because they don't want me to come to their house and sit down with them. They want to be able to do it. Just like you and I are talking right now. But that's how I do. I'm 100% digital agent. Make them feel comfortable. Go over things and spend a lot of time with them. And then at the end, cut up and be real. Is that hard to do? I don't know. So I was licensed to do Medicare in 2020. I was licensed to do Medicare in 2004. So that can tell you how long I've been doing experience. And again, the passion for not letting people get just something called a call center agent that just calls you and then disappears.
Okay. And there's definitely like a huge value for all of that. So what I would then challenge you when you're thinking about this message that you're going to be delivering to people. Don't think about just that you're trying to talk to every single person who might listen to a podcast, but that you're talking to people who listen to podcasts that are interested in health insurance and prescription drug plans, that also love pixies, that are she or they or part of the beautiful rainbow of life, that are interested in like the time that you have. So knowing that you spend a lot of time with your clients, when we're thinking about episode length, know that if you're torn between whether you make 10-minute or 25-minute episodes, know that you're going to do 25-minute episodes, because that's what you do as Jen when you're with your clients, as you spend more time with them. So like knowing things like that's going to help you as you're building your content, because you're not going to really be worried about like, when I'm delivering this episode, if I make this joke or that joke, is that going to be right? Because you're going to know, because you're not talking to everyone who listens. You're talking to that perfect client who's the fabulous she, they, pixie princess who's just needs. And it also sounds like your perfect person's like independent and like they want to do as much as they can on their own, but they're also smart enough to know that they can't do it all on their own. So they want you to be there as like a coach or a resource to walk them through the process, but they also don't need you to hold their hand or do everything for them too. So I think that as this much and this clear picture of who they are, when you're writing out what you want to say to them, not only will because you're an expert and a badass at what you do at Pixie Health Insurance, so you know what content you're saying, but you're also then going to know how you want to deliver it, because you're delivering it to your perfect people. How does that land?
It lands perfect. And you also said it, so we'll also discuss the male client, because he is a big part of it.
Yeah.
That is when then I'm there to answer those questions, even on a Sunday, which is very rare. So yeah, I am textable 24/7.
That's perfect. That's a huge draw for me, knowing that I'm your podcast guy and you can similar like text me with a question like this cover or this or this guest or that guest. Like, so yeah, with all of that and thinking about your podcast, what kind of impact would you see if you've created it and it's this 10-part series talking to your perfect client out there about the prescription drug plans that they need to know for 2025, and it's released and it's now out there and everyone's downloading it? What does that look like and feel like to you when you picture that?
I picture little mature adults going into CVS to pick up their drugs, and the CVS pharmacist talks to them about these new prescriptions and how much they're going to cost and the new plan, and they're wondering, should they go on it? And they're like, I talked to my Pixie about that. I don't have to do that. So just give me my prescriptions and let me go. And then she leaves with a big smile on her face because I already gave her all that information.
Yeah,
and she
that's
into something that she didn't need. Yeah.
And then in terms of the one benefit, also a lot of busy professionals like you also see of like having a 10-part or 12-part or whatever part mini series where you do it and then you're done, especially because once you write it all out, you could technically sit down and record all 12 episodes in 1 or 2 days. It is very much like a quick cycle, but this is also, like you said, a busy time of the year over the next couple of months. So in terms of timing and managing a podcast along with your work routine, do you see any obstacles with that?
Other than it being almost annual enrollment, Steve.
Okay, that's good.
I don't see any obstacles with it. I think as we started out in the beginning of this discussion about looking at, hey, are people actually looking at podcasts? The answer is yes, more than ever before.
Yeah.
Sometimes more than even the TikTok of the world. So yeah, when you look at that average, it's money to get out there and take a look, teach the community something that you have, and then reach a bigger audience all at once. I think it's a great idea.
Yeah, I love it because I made a business out of it, because I do feel like it is so great for businesses when it's used and done well. And I've also seen it be done not well enough times to know why people give up, why it's not always successful. But it sounds like with your personality and your brand that you have, which are already like very clearly established, like having the Pixie gives you that angle where we already know ish what the name like will be like in the logo and the branding and everything like that. and bringing your personality into the series that's coming out at a time as the information's coming out. So it's fresh and new and people will find it. But then it's also sounds like even though some of that will change, that it sounds like it's something they can go back to for months or afterwards as well. And you can maybe update next year with what's changed with just an extra couple episodes. So I definitely see it's something that can be a great way to not only build your business from people finding you through podcasts, but also as you're going out and about. Being Jen, the Pixie podcaster, will certainly be like another way that sets you apart in our industry too.
Mm-hmm. Yes, I agree.
So through this conversation, what would you say or
podcasts are possibly a genius way for an agent such as myself to get out my brand, which is number one most important, help clients, and then obviously grow anybody's career.
Yeah.
People are watching them more than they ever have before, and they don't cost anything.
Yeah, the fact that it's a free resource for people makes it an ideal way to get to know people in a new way, because there's not that pay to play aspect. And then because I think part of it is like when people are listening, it's like in their ears, it's almost like a more intimate experience depending on where you're listening to your podcast, but it also shows higher favorability ratings and conversion ratings than any other form of advertising right now as well. Over print ads, TV ads, radio ads, people will hear those and they'll listen to and enjoy and buy something from a podcast more than any of those, by a good 10 to 12% as of this past January's research that I had read. So it was really cool seeing that, or March.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you and I are on the same page.
Excellent. Hopefully, so are my listeners too. So thank you, listeners, for tuning in to Jen and I talk out the future Pixie Healthcare podcast. How would people find you right now to connect with you for information, whether it be about prescription drug plans or any other health insurance needs?
They can go to my website, which is www.pixiehealthinsurance.com.
Perfect. Excellent. Thank you so much, Jen. It's been a pleasure.